Hello and welcome along to Clare FM's Sideline View Review. It's Derek Lynch with you for the next hour. Coming up on the show, we will look back on the concluding stages of the group series in the Cusack and Garry Cups and assess how the knockout stages are looking. We will hear of a new book being launched to celebrate one of the most famed club football teams in the county, and Lissycasey are the subject of this week's More Than a Club episode. We start this evening though with football, where the knockout stages of the Cusack Cup is now decided and the Garry Cup picture has become a little clearer. Lissycasey are into the Cusack Cup final after an impressive win over Kilmurry, and after that game I spoke with their manager David Considine.
You've had 20-25 lads playing up until round 6, and then you add like 9 or 10 lads into that group. You know, it is difficult, even though we're a club team and they've probably played with each other all the way up along a different age groups than with senior for the last couple of years, but we're a new management group, so you've maybe different ideas and you just need to bed that in. So yeah, as I said, that's probably the biggest thing I'll take from today, is that it was seamless at times. It wasn't perfect. We conceded 3 goals and could have conceded another 5 or 6, so that's probably the positive thing I'll take.
In which he scored 4, and there was a couple of those fist passes over the bar that seems to be a big topic in football at the minute, so you were creating a lot of chances.
Yeah, look, it clicked at stages today, in fairness, and we took the shooting efficiency was probably better today than what had been in the previous 6 games, and it's obviously the highest score we've put up so far, which is again another pleasing factor. The new rules have allowed teams to, I suppose, attack a bit more and gives players maybe a little bit more freedom. So and it frees up a little bit more space around the arc and up front. So yeah, that's another positive from today. And 4 weeks now to be on the training field working on things ahead of that top tier final. Yeah, the league really was, I suppose, to get together and get performance under the belt, get fitness levels up. We've played it with respect. We've put out our strongest teams at all times, and we've a month of a break now. I suppose ultimately you've your eyes on the first round of the championship, and again we'll continue to bed more players in the next 4 weeks, so that hopefully, no matter who we meet in the finals, again it's going to be a very, very difficult game, and again we'll just give it that kind of preparation that it deserves in respect.
I want to be a savage primer for championship, like to have a Cusack Cup final to play before you head out in that game.
Yeah, look, it's either that or playing challenge games, and with the best will in the world, I suppose, in a challenge game you're trying to look for outside challenge games and clubs around the county, and that's not easy. Every club is finishing up league and preparing for championship, so trying to get those challenge games isn't simple, and especially ones that are meaningful. So yeah, to have a 4 week break to a league final is something that we, I suppose, the group have to really kind of look forward to and prepare for well.
Now, they are the thoughts of Lissycasey manager David Considine after yesterday's win over Kilmurry Brickham, which sees them straight into this year's final. That was because of the other results that unfolded yesterday, most notably Erogue's victory over St Brickens, which still sees St Brickens in a home semi-final where they'll play a Milltown team who will be rather chastened after their defeat against an already relegated Kilrush. Lots to pick through in the final round, and I suppose the leagues overall. Will touch on the Garry Cup as well, which has become a little bit clearer but still not overly. Kieran Madigan with us to do just that. In an overall sense, Kieran, before we get into maybe the games yesterday in any great detail, your take on the Cusack Cup as a whole and how it has panned out?
Look, it hasn't been a bad campaign. I still don't think the Cusack Cup is anywhere near the quality it would be going back to 2018, 2019. I suppose part of the reason would be the split season now and the unavailability of county players. I'd say, like, going into round 7 yesterday was probably the first time teams probably had anything near their strongest 15 available. So, you know, I think when you're playing like this, it's very important to pick up results early in the campaign. And, some teams did that and benefited from it. But a good day of football yesterday for sure. And I still think there's an argument maybe for starting this competition a little bit later. But, yesterday everyone was checking latest scores from the other games, because one thing about it, every game yesterday meant something, whether it was relegation or teams fighting for promotion. But being that and the Garry Cup, there was no dead rubber across the 2 divisions, so that's positive for Clare football. Everyone had something on the line and was fighting for something, and I suppose that's as close as you can get kind of to championship before you actually face into championship, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and there's a couple of big storylines coming out of it, I suppose. We'll start maybe at the bottom of the table, perhaps, because incredible to think that last year's beaten finalists who brought Erogue all the way to extra time will be playing Garry Cup football next year. It has been, I suppose, a turnaround 12 months, maybe the way to put it, for Dura Bearfield.
Yeah, look, they'll be disappointed to find themselves relegated. They were in the Cusack Cup final and the County Senior Championship final last year, and it's very successful underage at minor and under 21 level, and have a depth of players coming through, but for one reason or another, they seem to be down a lot of players that they would have had available last year. I think they were down 6 or 7 of their county final team yesterday, and I suppose players like Joe Rafferty not being available to them would obviously weaken any team. But yeah, they'll be very disappointed to go down, because they look like they were building very, very well last year, and they should really have won that Cusack Cup final last year. They had the chance to win it in normal time. Erogue emptied the bench in the extra time period and probably blew them away, but they certainly had their chances to win it in normal time. But look, 12 months down the road, they're in a lot tougher position, but I think they'll be able to park that. Going down to Garry Cup isn't the end of the world, as we saw yesterday. It's a very good standard as well. So they'll be trying to regroup now and get things going again for championship, because when they get their minds to it, they can be a serious force in the championship, as they showed last year.
And no better Buchel than Donovan and the group he has around him, I suppose, to get them to refocus and kind of cut the link maybe that might be in a player's head between that relegation and what's ahead for championship. So they'll try and do just that. Other end of the table then, Lissycasey, very, very impressive winners in Park Navura, kicking up 4-21. Arguably could have had a couple of more goals with it as well. And as David was saying there in his piece, arguably could have conceded a couple of more goals as well. So he's not quite sure. Thomas Collins was brilliant, he said, but he shouldn't ever be that busy. But still in all, to be in their final, a second one in 3 years, they'll be delighted with that.
Yeah, I think, further development, I know they won the Cusack Cup a couple of years ago, but I think for this particular group and their development, getting to Cusack Cup final is the next step on the road for them. They're a team that everyone is expecting to see make a breakthrough at championship level at some stage. They got to semi-final last year, I suppose, their first time in a while, and I'm sure their aim this year will be to go a step further. But if they could put a bit of silverware on the board before that with the Cusack Cup, I think they'd be delighted with that. And you could have to be very, very impressed with them yesterday. The 4-21 they put up against Kilmurray, and as you rightly said, they could have a lot more with it as well. They played with serious pace. They opened up the Kilmurray defence anytime they ran at them, and I thought they dominated the kickouts at both ends of the field. Very impressive. Overall, I was very impressed with Derek Killeen at centre back. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. I thought Matt Shea did very well on kickouts, and they have that bit of quality up front with Derek Culligan was I thought he was excellent yesterday, and Shane Griffin as well, and obviously Conor Finucane, still kicking 2-pointers there from as well, and that's without Aaron Griffin and Conor Hill as well to come back into it. So they're certainly moving in the right direction, and they're looking good coming into the business end of the season now.
Yeah, big win then for Kilrush, as we say, and they were already relegated, but they really threw off the shackles, and high scoring victory again. It was over Milltown, who would have been expected to win that game. Now they were still in a semi-final, but I think they would have gotten to a home semi had they gotten the result in that one. But they'll be a little bit chastened perhaps by the manner of the defeat.
Yeah, they possibly will. I definitely don't think anyone would have tipped Kilrush to win the game with the results they'd had so far this year, but from what I hear on it, Kilrush had players that they wouldn't have had available all year, and none more so than Stephen Ryan. Apparently had a massive influence on the game. He was supposed to be an excellent, not just his shot stopping and stuff, but his kicking was, what we've come to expect from him. And they obviously had the two Fennels as well. And I think Milltown probably already been qualified, left a few of their more experienced players on the bench. Whether they thought they would have had enough without them or not, I don't know. But look, I suppose they've lost the home semi-final. But look, I think qualifying for the semi-final would have been their aim, and I think they'll be happy enough with that. They won't be happy with conceding 3 goals, but they still kicked 22 points as well over the hour. So it's not too bad, and they still achieved their aim in making the semi-final. And they get their rewards for hitting the ground early in the Cusack Cup and getting some big wins on the board in the early stages of competition. So I think, look, they've still got at least one more competitive game, which is is better than any challenge game you're going to be playing over the next few weeks, and I think they'll take that at this stage. And I think Kilrush will take the positives from putting in a good performance to finish the campaign, and they'll try and take that into the intermediate championship, because they're still when they get everyone available, they should be a very good outfit in the intermediate championship.
Yeah, you mentioned Stephen Ryan being very good in goals, but at the exact opposite end of the field, we have to give mention to Mark Bonfield. 3-4 is some shooting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's massive shooting, and I think they had a fair range of scorers throughout the hour, and the main men that you would have probably expected, the Fennell brothers. Connor, I think he only got 1 point over the hour, but certainly 3-4 is fantastic, and you don't see too many lads get a hat trick in Gaelic football, and I think he'll be delighted with that. It's a fair achievement.
The other game then saw Éire Óg beating St. Brickens inside in the Éire Óg grounds, but Brickens, I suppose they'll be a little bit disappointed. The win would have put them straight into the final. They now have to host their old rivals Milltown in a semi-final in 2 weeks' time. But I suppose, is it hard then to maybe judge how a management team might frame this, in that, it's another game? If you win it, you get another game, and all of a sudden you have 2 really good games played before you go to championship.
Yeah, I think it's better. It's the best preparation you can have for championship, because I know most teams now are probably going to be going outside the county, for the next month, playing challenge games, and that's all well and good. But I'd rather have a Cusack Cup semi-final and a final, if you could have it, going into championship, because you've got 2 real competitive games. And I think that's great preparation. A little bit unusual that the 2 teams that made the semi-final actually were both beaten yesterday, which I suppose maybe not over surprising when you would have known that Éire Óg would have had a few county players back. They didn't have everyone now, but they had a few back, all right. And I think Éire Óg or Brecons would have probably relished playing a stronger Éire Óg team, because there's no point. There's nothing to learn from playing a weakened team. You'd rather go up against the best and see how you're faring up. And look, they weren't too far away from him yesterday. And Brecons have probably, overall, I know Lissycasey topped it, but Brecons have probably been the best team in the competition up to yesterday. And look at they're still in the semi-final, and it should be a good battle between themselves and Milltown, because they do tend to meet a lot, and there's very rarely very much between the 2 teams. So I would imagine it'll be a real championship feel to it when they meet in the semi-final.
Yeah, so that one is 2 weeks' time, and then the final 2 weeks after that again, and then we won't feel championship rolling around, that's for sure. So that's the Cusack Cup wrapped up. The Garry Cup had all sorts of different permutations attached to the games before they started yesterday. There's still a couple of outcomes that can happen. What we do know for sure, though, is Clondegad and Dombeg are into the knockout stages. For Clondegad, it's a case of whether it's a semi-final or a final. The Kildysart Wolf Tones game was postponed due to a bereavement. That's taking place next Friday night now, and again the result of that will be impacting. I think a draw for Wolf Tones or a victory will see them through. Kildysart can still either go up or go down, which is incredible, depending on how the results might go. This is just a division that keeps on giving.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I mean, if you look at the league table today, Kildysart sits 7th, and with 1 game to play, and yet they could still end up in the semi-final. It's just crazy. And who will be looking out in this game with a real interest is Clare, because if Kildysart win the game, Clare will end up being relegated to Division 3. So it has an awful lot on the line. Kildysart would be delighted to make a semi-final if they can, and Wolf Tones, everyone is waiting on the outcome of this, because it just changes everything. And like Clonegad sit at the top of the table right now, but all that can change. Kildysart obviously would first and foremost, obviously they want to stay up, but if they can turn this around and end up in a semi-final, because they're starting to get players back, that Rory Mahon is back, and Emmett was back as well. So they're a far stronger outfit than they would have been earlier in the campaign, and if they can make a semi-final, it would be a great achievement for them.
I was trying to make sense of this on my iPhone notes yesterday, and I was tearing my hair out. Not that I have much of it to spare anyway, but if Wolf Tones were to beat Kildysart, that would leave a 3-way mini-league table, and the usual way this was done in previous outings was that it was actually the score difference in the games between the teams that were used. It's not that way for this particular instance. It's actually the head-to-head record. So, for example, in the Dombeg versus Wolf Tones game, that was a draw. That leaves Wolf Tones and Dombeg with a point each on those mini-league standings. So that'll all have to come into play on that. If Kildysart were to win, well, then there's actually a mini league table for the third place playoff, which would leave, or the third place on the table, I should say, and that would leave Kildysart in the best possible position for that. So mathematics are being tested anyway.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, there isn't really anywhere you can actually see this. You have to work it out yourself. If you look at the website, you've got the for and against and the scoring difference. But it's hard enough you have to really do a little bit of homework to work out the mini leagues. So yeah, but I suppose with only one game left, we have a better idea of, if Kildysart win the game, they'll I think they end up in the semi-final against Doonbeg, and if Wolf Tones win the game, do they go straight to the final? Is that the way it works?
Yeah, I'll just check back on here. Yeah, if Wolf Tones beat Kildysart, they go straight to the final, and it'll be Clondegad at home to Doonbeg in the semi-final then. So Clondegad and Doonbeg are through anyway. It's just whether it'll be Wolf Tones or Kildysart in the three, and then figure out who goes where.
But that's as close to a championship game that these two teams can get. So it's a massive game, and there's so much on the line. To think that I've never seen anything a team that are going into a game, they'll either be basically relegated or they'll be in the semi-final. It's just mad. But that just shows how even this Garry Cup division is. And like even Navan getting relegated, Navan are no easy team to come up against in this, and they showed that getting a draw with Corofin, who won the intermediate championship last year and will be playing senior football this year. So all 8 teams in that division, they're all capable of beating each other, and it's certainly the strongest and most evenly matched division in the whole of Clare football, I think. I
think one result as well, just before we finish up, that a lot of people were talking about yesterday. I was in Clare. I got there after the game in Quilty to see the Clare-Clondegad game. Good game. Clondegad were deserving winners on the day, to be fair. But talking to a couple of people coming out, and there was a lot of talk about Doonbeg's victory in Cratloe. Not just the victory, but I suppose the margin of it, and the tally they kicked up as well, because that was a strong Cratloe team that they had out as well. That was a massive victory for the Magpies.
Yeah, very, very surprised at the manner of the victory. As you said, it was a strong Cratloe team. A lot of the 3 Collins brothers played. Kevin Hartnett played. Conor Ryan played. They had plenty of their strongest players available. And anytime you'd look at Doonbeg and you'd say 21 points, you say, what did David Tuberty score? And David Tuberty scored 1 point from a free. And it's just because we've expected him to do the bulk of their scoring. So what that would tell you is that there's obviously a bigger spread of scorers in Doonbeg now than there would have been in recent years, taking the pressure off David as well. So that was a massive result for them. And Doonbeg traditionally wouldn't be a team that would be putting up scores like 21 points. How many games would you have seen winning 10 points a 9 or something like that? They've been more known as being a dogged team that would grind out victories, but to go down to Cratloe and win the game by 12 points is fair shooting from them, and puts them in a good position. And they would love to get back into the Cusack Cup. They're a team, they've won it on many occasions, and it'll give them a great boost of confidence going into the senior championship, I think.
Yeah, and that won't be felt now, but of course before all that we will have the semi-finals and finals of the Cusack and Garry Cup, so plenty to look forward to over the next couple of weeks. Kieran, thanks as ever for that. We're back shortly here on Sideline View Review. Andrew, welcome back to the show. Well, a new book is to be launched later this month, celebrating the unique achievements of the Kilrush Shamrocks GAA club in the 1970s, when the famed team won an unprecedented and unmatched 5 consecutive senior championship titles. That achievement is being marked in a new publication which has been authored by a great sham himself in Chris Dixon O'Mara. He joined Alan Morrissey on Morning Focus earlier to outline where the project all began.
In 1975, when they won the first championship, a magazine was published by Tom Prindiville at the time, and that was a really good source of information firsthand. That was from that period, but it was a magazine that covered 1 year, and they're tricky copies to get a hold of now. So I knew something more updated needed to be done, and that covered the 5 championships that had been won.
So give us a sense, Chris, of what, I was going to say what made the side so special. We know what made them so special, winning 5 in a row, unprecedented, but how did that happen? Was it, brilliant management? Was it just a brilliant group of players coming together at the right time? Did they have a couple of years of heartbreak and, continue progression before they got that first one in 75 and it just rolled from there? Or is it a kind of maybe a combination of some or all of those elements?
Yeah, Alan, you're actually ticking all the boxes, really, to be honest. That's kind of...
It's fair, I read this already.
Yeah, honestly. That's really how it came about. So this team, in 1962, Kilrush won their last senior championship, and they would go on a drought of 13 years, which for the club was a very, very long time. So there's a lot of hurt, a lot of heartbreak. They lost 3 championships in that time as well, in 67, 66, 67 and 1970. So a lot of the players on that team, especially younger players, they thought that they were never ever going to win a championship. And so, coming into the 70s, they had really tough years from 1970 up to maybe 1974. But what was happening at that time as well was just underage teams that were coming through in the 60s and the early 70s that were winning everything all around them, under 14, under 16s. And they were incredibly confident, incredibly talented. They knew nothing but winning. So they kind of came into this panel in around the 73, 74 mark, really confident. And what else happened was that probably the greatest Kilrush footballer, from what I can tell, based on the interviews that I've had, Brian O'Reilly, came back to Kilrush. After he finished school, he went up to Mayo and played with Ballina. But in 1973, he came back to play with the Kilrush Shamrocks. And he brought an incredible standard. He'd played in National League finals with Mayo in the late 60s, early 70s, and he brought a huge standard. And then the final piece of the puzzle was Raymond Clancy was appointed manager in 1973, and he had an obsession with Kerry football, and so was probably the most frequent patron of the Tarbert Clymer Ferry, over and back watching training and matches. So when you had these talented young players, you had Brian O'Reilly coming back, raising the standard on the pitch, and you had Raymond Clancy bringing in what Kerry were doing to a West Clare club, and you also had the hunger of those players who had kind of through the 70s and through the 60s and 70s who had lost a lot. When you brought all of those factors together, that was really what I was trying to answer, was how did this come about? So the story isn't just about the 5 in a row, it's about all that hunger and that heartbreak that kind of came before it.
They say, Chris, you should never judge a book by its cover, but I'm going to try and judge a team by the book's cover, because on the front of Lords and Masters is a picture of a couple of members of the team walking out onto the pitch, and I'm wondering if part of their success was their teak toughness, because this looks like a hardy bunch of men who I'd say took no nonsense.
Absolutely, yeah. Once I saw that photograph,
the most polite way I can say putting it.
Absolutely. Once I saw that photograph, I knew that was going to be the cover. The minute I saw it, the determination. That's just the cover photo is in advance of the 1979 final against Doonbeg for the 5 in a row. And was a steely determination in their eyes, and they were really dedicated.
This fella's gritting their teeth and everything, and maybe that's because they knew it was an unprecedented 5 in a row was on the line, and they weren't going to let that opportunity pass.
Absolutely, and also they were playing Doonbeg, so there was a heated rivalry there. So there was no need to add any fuel to the fire for this match. But they were incredibly determined, disciplined. A lot of those players would have been living in Cork and Dublin, Galway, Mayo, and they were travelling down for training and matches at a time when there was no motorways. Some of them didn't have cars, so they were
real commitment.
Yeah, absolute commitment, and the training was dogged. Raymond Clancy brought what they were doing in Kerry to Kilrush. The runs were intense. They were running up these hills in Alvaru, and anyone that's familiar with Kilrush or Kappa will know these hills. They're very, very steep, and these players were running up them at an unprecedented level. Another factor that brought success to this team and why they were so good as well was they would travel over and back to Kerry, playing teams there in the 70s, and at the start they were getting hammerings. There was no doubt about it. They were losing matches by 20-25 points, but the gap was closing, and after a couple of years they were beating those Kerry teams in those challenge matches, and because of that fitness they went out with a huge level of confidence in those championship final matches.
Fair play. That's it's going to be a fascinating read, be it for people from Kilrush who lived through this period, or young people who've been hearing all these great stories. And I'd say for some of the fellas in the team that will appreciate that something like this has been put together as well. Yeah, absolutely. No, they certainly have, and I've met with many of the players through this, and that's been an incredible honour, to sit down in these people's living rooms and chat with them or over the phone. Also, another part, probably the greatest honour of the book has been, some of the volunteers, the supporters and the players have passed away, so it was kind of honouring their legacy and getting to speak with their family members, be it their wives or daughters or sons, about those players or those supporters or volunteers. So there's sections in the book that kind of look at these, I suppose, what people might think just your ordinary people that you see in town who would have gone to the matches or who would have quietly dedicated their time to the club fundraising or supporting underage teams. This book honours those. It tells their story. It has fantastic photographs in there that have been kindly donated by people. So honouring the players, but also honouring all of the ecosystem that was around them at the time as well. Well, look, congratulations on the book. I mean, after 1979, generally speaking, what has Kilrush Shamrock's history been like? So it's been trickier.
many of these players stayed on as well, and it's to be noted that they won a championship in 81 and 87. That was our final championship that we had won. So things have been tough since then. We've had like a lot of loss of players. For example, myself, I played up until I was 25, and then I headed off to the States and the UK, and that's happened with a lot of players, where we haven't had that full team, but things are looking up. The team had a good win at the weekend as well. We're an intermediate, hoping to go back up to senior, and there's some fantastic underage teams coming through, so I have no doubt that they will drive on. All the proceeds from this book as well, is kind of worth noting as well, are going to that underage team, the boys and girls club as well. So hopefully we can raise money from this that will support those teams and support their success, and that just adds another legacy to this team's achievements. And just to note as well that the launch of the book will be taking place on June 27th, Saturday morning at 11 a.m. In the Vandeleur Wall Garden, and that's part of their Vandeleur Festival that's happening out there. There's many great events over that weekend, and if you want to pre-order the book, that can be done on our website, www.kiloreshamrocks.com.
And the very best of luck to Chris with that publication. I would say it's certainly one for the GA fan in your house, whether that's in Kilrush or beyond. More to come, and we are shining a light on Lissycasey GA Club next.
This feature, More Than a Club, is funded by Commission Naman with the television licence fee.
Next up here on our Club in Profile series, we are delighted to shine a spotlight on Lissycasey, and to do that we've Club Chairman Eamon Finucane and Club Everything really, I suppose, and our own analyst as well here with us, Paddy Carmody. Lads, thanks for taking the time to have a chat with us. Eamon, take us back to the beginnings. Is it fair to say Lissycasey might be one of the younger GA clubs in Clare?
We're around since I'd say we were formed. Well, we played with Ballykelly, Clondigad Parish back in the day, but I think we kind of went out on our own on I think 63, 64, 65ish. I'm not sure now, but we were around a while. Yeah, we were around a while. We won a junior championship then. I think our first junior championship in 1971, and we won it. Yeah, we won it again in 82, and we won the. Sorry, it was 92. I'd say 92, and we won the intermediate championship in 94, and we're a senior team since.
Yeah.
So we've played senior football since. We had a couple of flirtations with relegation, but we survived it, and we're still there. Like.
Yeah, and of course that championship success, which we'll
right.
come to as well. But maybe take us back into that decision to go out on your own. We know it's a huge parish if you take everything in of its own accord, but that decision to strike off out on your own.
You'd have to ask a wiser man than me now. I'd say you want Seamus Hayes, there was some money for that one. But as far as I know, they played. I remember Dr. Merson Pidgey Kelly. He showed me a programme. They played in the county final against Mohan in Newmarket. I think it was 61, and I think they were beaten by a point or something on the same day. It was a controversial thing anyway. But look, what I'd say it was numbers thing, and I'm not 100% sure of the history of it, So, but I
think there was Caharay teams, and
there was back before that 2 years ago. Yeah.
So there was, and there would have been Ballykelly teams and Lisheen teams, and there was a Lisheen hurling club.
That's
so
right.
There was nearly always Gaelic games played in the wider parish. But then we'll say, as Eamon alluded, in the early 60s there was a combined team. I would say Lissycasey, Ballykelly, and I think they lost the junior final.
I think so. Yeah.
Lissycasey went outright mid-60s sometime around.
I think so, yeah.
And Clondigad then I think was maybe 10 years later established themselves as well, and that's the way it's been since, as I said, So, and I think and it's funny because maybe some people back mightn't associate Lissycasey with being a traditional team, probably because it is one of the newly formed teams. But I think outside of Kilmurray and Doonbeg, I think we're the longest.
Correct. Yeah.
We're the longest standing senior club now since we came up in 95. So it's been good. Numbers have steadily grown over the last 50 years more now at this stage, and we're in a very strong position at the minute, and everybody's rowing in. So there's a lot of history there. It's varied. A lot of people in the parish have bits of work done on it. Just maybe there might be a publication in a few years' time. That might be nice for everyone to have. It's documented, as Eamon said. Seamus has
if he doesn't know it, it's kind of not worth knowing, really, isn't it?
Oisin has buckets of work done as well. So I think that hopefully someday there might be a bit of work done. Other clubs have it done, so maybe in a few years' time we'll do the same. But things are good.
Yeah, and Eamon, as you mentioned there, so you were still junior in the early 90s, came up senior and then won the championship in 07. So it's a kind of a meteoric rise, really, to do that, to go from those ranks to meeting success straight away almost.
Yeah, we were in the county final in 1998.
Yeah.
Myself and Georgia Whelan. Georgia was our manager. We got Dunbeg beat us in the county final after a replay in Milltown.
Yes.
And Dunbeg went on then. We were unlucky to lose it the first day. And Dunbeg went on to beat as well in the replay. They actually won 93 points. And Dunbeg then went on to win the Munster final the same year. So we were up and down then after that. And in 2016 we got to the county final. Arrow beat us. And we won it then in 2007. So which was a marvellous achievement. Fantastic group of players as well, like.
Yeah, and that party I know has not only brought great glory to the club in terms of those championship medals, but I suppose there's a particular group from around that time that have stayed on and have done great things to the present day.
That's exactly it. As Eamon said, 2007 is our only championship, and I remember like the whole feeling for the couple of years around it. After 2006, even though we got beaten by Rogue in the finals,
Right.
I think we were the better team on the day. Like probably inexperience cost us and a couple of key injuries and stuff like that. There was just a feeling around 2007. I just remember it vividly. There was just a feeling that we were going to get the job done, which was kind of a bit strange for a club that hadn't done before. But there was just a feeling. But you had great warrior players. Obviously, the two linchpins for the previous 10-15 years that that Martin and Colin. They played, I'd swear, in the 92 or 3.
That were in the 90. That would have
junior,
played.
They definitely played in the intermediate. But they were surrounded by great men, great hungry. We had hungry lads. We had talented lads. It just all came together at the right time, And it wasn't while Martin and Colin may have been old, and we could mention 10, 15 other names, but unfortunately what happened soon after that, there was the next generation were ready. Like Jimmy Kelly was the captain, and there was a core of about 8 or 9 of those lads, but immigration hit hard, we feel that there could have been a couple more championships there, but no, we can't complain about that because every other club was affected the exact same way. So, but there's great men. Every one of those men, I suppose they all have, more or less all of them now have kids, and they're all giving back the time in the club, and there's lads involved with the senior team, the hours that takes, lads have gone in and taken roles like Eamon, the executive of the club, and sure, that's thankless hours. Nobody knows what these lads do, the amount of hours they put in. And we've nearly always, since we had an old school teacher, Groda Sullivan, I think he was ahead of his time, back in the 80s and 90s. He didn't have children himself, but he was the principal of the local school, and the hours he put into football, he had every young fella in the parish playing football at a really young age, and we've always been strong at coaching underage and really pushing underage, and that has borne fruit on a lot of occasions, and there's still huge work. So I said all the men that played in that 2017, they're all giving back.
Eamon, tell us about your own background in the club. Where does your first graw come into it?
I was born in Frewer. Went to school in Frewer School back in the day, and then Frewer School closed. We went down to Lissycasey School, and for the first couple of years I was there for 5th to 6th class. But the 2 years we used to have cracking games between Frewer and Lissycasey out the backyard, cracking games. And there was good as any championship match. But I played under 12, 14, 16, all the way up along for Lissycasey. We're beaten in a minor final. I think we didn't win a whole lot now. I remember back in the day, Cloncastle used to be always strong. We'd be going great when we play Cloncastle.
Right.
And we'd always get we'd always get a hocking from them, I never forget that. There was another team there, Clare. I think they were around from town someplace. And we used to play them as well now. And but we didn't not in 14, 16. We got to a minor final in, I think it was in the late 70s, I think. We actually played in an under 17A final. We joined up with Kildysart. I don't know the thinking behind that, how that came about. But after a replay, Rogue beat us a very good Rogue team beat us in the final. So we drew the first day, and we remember that now. I didn't play much then. I went to work. I cut my fingers in an accident in 84 or 85 or 6. I didn't play much football then, and I came back playing then in 93, I think. And I was involved in the panel of the 94 Intermediate Championship with Martin Brennan. Martin Brennan was our manager, and I was involved in that. And I played in junior in 95, 96, and I was involved in the junior. I got involved in junior management then in 96, and we had a cracking year. We won 3 championships. We won the Junior B Championship, we won the Junior B League, and it was a thing there at that time, I think it was West Clare League, or West Clare, there was a divisional thing.
Yeah.
And we won that as well.
Was it the Geraldine League? Was that the one?
No, it wasn't the
Geraldine
League. Geraldine League was Junior A.
Yeah,
It was it was a divisional championship. It was the West Clare championship. That time, I go back a long time now, there was West Clare championship, there was Mid Clare, there was kind of divisional championships that time, like, you know, so we won that as well, I think. And there was some great lads involved in that now, and they all became, a lot of them boys were involved in that team in 96, went on to be great servants of the club. You have North Mercy, Michael Millican, you have Kieran Donnelly, Michael O'Rourke, Ty Kelly, you had flaking lads on that team, like, you know, and you had a few older lads like myself and Sean Talty, John Culligan. You know, we had a great fun, like, you know. We had a man from he was a great character, Lissycasey. He worked at Moneypoint, Imby Rowland. He was our manager, and he was with us, you know, and he was a great man. He was having Linda, and they brought young lads around to matches, and, you know, Linda would rock up, but she'd pick up lads from school, and she'd pick up a team, and there could be 10 lads inside the back of the car. You know, there was no problem in the world. Like, they were great people. But John Brennan as well, he was a West Clare man, and that was kind of, you know. Then you had the 98 boys, you had Lynch and Daly, and the boys were coming along at that stage. So, But I'm involved since then.
Yeah.
I'm involved since I was coaching then, and we won a 12A championship in 2002, I think. That was our first A championship. I was involved in that, and we took there. We were very competitive under. It was at the time Colm Collins was arriving with his Crackler boys.
Okay.
And we had cracking games with Colm and Crackler. They beat us in 14A Fela final or Fela semi-final. I don't know if it was a championship, I think, and they beat us. We always had cracking games with them, and we really got our revenge in 2009. We beat them in the semi-final of the Minor A Championship, because I think they were in the final the year before. Podge and Sean and all them boys were playing that time. Colin McInerney, you know, Conor McGrath, all them boys. We came up along with them lads, and we won the Minor A Championship in 2009. Which was a great achievement that was our first A championship. So, and that team then went on to feed a lot of players onto our senior team, because as Paddy said, we won the senior championship in 2007, but immigration then took us toll, and a lot of them boys were fast tracked into the senior team, and that minor team, and you know, they kind of backboned the team, and they kept it going. We didn't win a whole lot, but they kept us going, like. They kept us senior.
Those boys are still there.
They're still there. They give great service now. We won minor championship then in 2013 and 2014, and no, we got good numbers, good rewards from that as well. But I think my hand on my heart, I'd say we got more players from that 09 team. So no, that was a great team for us. Like, it kept us in bad years when we were at relegation finals and things. They kind of kept us afloat, and so the Martin O'Connors and the Matt Shays and the Niall Kellys and Francie Hayeses, and so they all come up along that group, like, you know. They were a great group, like.
And that underage conveyor belt, Paddy, in recent years has just cranked up to new levels altogether. You're so competitive at all the top grades. I mean, probably Lissycasey, Innisdiamond, Dura Bearfield, the big three, I suppose, in a lot of grades at underage level in recent times, and you're keeping that truck ticking over anyway, for sure. Yeah,
as I said earlier on, there's good work, there's great work going on, and there's a big emphasis on it. Everybody pulls together. You know, there's so many coaches. Michael O'Rourke, Michael O'Rourke and Caroline, his wife, they're a father of 5. And if you want to see a traditional Irish family, like, they're at the pitch morning, noon and night. He's our coach and officer, involved in nearly every team. If there's a bit of painting to be done at the pitch, he's first there. Like, he's the club is in his heart, but there's many people like him, but he's setting the example. But I suppose we've been lucky in terms of our location in the last 20 years. We had the 2 housing developments, and there was kind of a jump in population there, you know. And I think in most teams over the last couple of years, we'd maybe fielding 2 teams, you know, you'd have maybe an academy team, and you'd notice that underage blitzes and stuff like that, you know, we wouldn't be nowhere near Dura Bearfield or potentially even near Oak in terms of numbers, but we definitely have good numbers. I think looking at the school entry numbers over the next 2 to 3 years, I think it does fall off a little bit. So, yeah. But that it'll just go through normal cycles. But yeah, there's huge work going on. I think if Fergal here is always, you know, thinking outside the box as well. Fergal at Fenny O'Dee's, he'd be kind of going out there looking for external coaches to come in and do workshops with all current coaches and stuff like that. So it's busy because it's a huge commitment. Like taking an under 11 team now is the same commitment as what it was taking a senior championship team 10 years ago. It's just massive. And
I suppose the under 11 parents would nearly be more vocal than the senior parents, would they?
Correct. Yeah, things are good, but what we've definitely seen as well, like that every club now every club out there that we see anyway in West there, there's great work going on. So I think that not just Lissycasey, but every club that we see in West there, they're putting in as much effort now as everyone. And I would really hope that the work that's going on, you know, well, selfishly myself and Aim, I would like to see championships in Lissycasey, but I think everyone would love to see Clare football rise, and I feel with the work that's going on, we are going to see the benefits of that in another maybe 6 or 7 years. It might take that long, but I think if the clubs keep putting in the work and keep fighting, I think our county pedigree can improve.
Just from a club sense, Eamon, though, there's not too many clubs, I'd say even in the province, can boast having 2 facilities. Obviously you developed the pitch in Frore as a training facility a number of years ago as well. I mean, that must have been a savage undertaking at the time, but a huge sense of pride to have that.
As I always say, we'd be kind of unique really, because we're kind of running 2 clubs. We have a facility in Lissycasey, which is our main facility, but we have a facility also in Frore, but maybe 2 miles back from Lissycasey. But no, it's been fabulous. That is a fair play to Pat Hayes. He's our vice president at the minute. But Pat had the brainchild to buy that place in Frore from John Hanrahan and not worse than him. And we progressed from there. We developed it, and it has grown and grown and grown. And we've a fine. There's a fine 4 fine dressing rooms there. We have a, you know, it's a fine facility, meeting rooms, everything, and I'd say you contributed to our success at underage, because everyone can train and you have your slots, and so we also, I suppose, our Fergus Rovers are with us as well, so part of our parish and the girls' side of the club, and they do fabulous work, and I'd say they have 50% of the slots as much as the boys, like, you know. So, but we wouldn't be able to accommodate all that without the second facility.
Yeah, there's a lot of clubs under a lot of pressure, particularly in that first quarter of the year, isn't there? Like,
yeah. No, we have no issue. Now we have a lot of money spent on upgrading the 2 pitches as well. So we took in we undertook a sanding program there with the last, this is our 3rd year of it, and the pitches have improved out of measure, you know. So it's been expensive, but it's been well worth it.
And I know nets were redone there as well, and to be remiss of us lads to talk about the club and not mention one PJ Kelly, I suppose, correct, the fact that the pitch is nearly dedicated to him now, Parkin and Wintier as well, renamed there recently. He was a huge part of it, wasn't he?
He was involved. He was involved in that years ago, and he got grants, and he set up this and he set up that, you know, and he got money for us, like, you know. So, and he was development. He was always there. And anything that was anything money we could get, he'd get it for us, you know. So he was great help that way. And he was proud of that pitch, and he was also proud of the pitch and the facilities in Frore. But no, it's good now. It's good, but it's expensive.
Yes,
it costs money, like, you know. So that'll be the downside. Like, we're constantly looking for that's if Finucane is looking for money again, you know. So, but what's he fundraising for now, like, or, you know? But you have to do it, like, you know. You have to do it, and but it's bearing fruit. And I would give credit to the people of Lissycasey. They're excellent to support any fundraiser we've done. They're 100% behind it.
Paddy, talk to us about two of those in particular, because I often caught about meeting this man, setting your winter fuel raffle tickets at Maxall, and I'd no cash in my pocket, but he had a sum up machine, so I was caught anyway. But that's been a huge success. That's nearly an annual staple event now, and I know you were hugely involved in, was it the raffle off of a car? I think he even let Tommy Guilfoyle. You let Tommy Guilfoyle do a kind of a Top Gear run around below in Shannon there one day as well, I think, for a social media video.
Yeah, we had actually a great crack doing it. There was great banter. The project itself was, I have to call it a project, there was 9 or 10 of us involved. It went on for a full calendar year. We had no idea it would be as successful as it was. It bore fruit, and that, along with the grant, the Oscar grant, we have fully certified lights now at Park Mintra for the first time, so we're playing games down, and we have really good lights on Fruit as well. We upgraded them with a local community effort. Was it last November, December? We had an absolutely cracking day in the cold and wet when we were putting up the lights. There were about 20 or 30 volunteers there from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the evening, and we were feeding them all day. And when the lights came on, we popped a few bottles of beer, and there was young lads there and old lads there, and everyone came together, and the vibe, you could smell it back in the car park at 4. Were just about 20 of us sitting against the trailer looking up at the lights. And you could just feel the vibe, and there was a couple of young lads there, and it was great for them. Let's say Brian Geary's young lad, Alan O'Flynn, they were there and they were there helping all day as well, just so for young lads, because sometimes that's lost when players go out on the pitch and the facilities that are laid on for them, like, they didn't come from nothing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So those young players, hopefully they'll play for another 20 years, like, and they'll always remember that bit of crack they had with the older lads, putting those lights up. And as I said before, I move on to the super draws you asked, like, but we mentioned about Fruer being bought 25 years ago by Pat Hayes, the then chairman, but that incurred an awful lot of debt, and the debt was very significant. But it came at the time of the really bad crash in 2008, 2009, and the man here beside me, everyone in the parish will acknowledge, Eamon almost single-handedly flushed out that debt. Like, playing numbers were gone to God. Everyone was, all the players were immigrating. People were struggling for work, struggling for money. Eamon came up with the Friends of Lissycasey in his first term as chairman, and it, wiped out the debt. So we actually couldn't afford to do anything in Lissycasey for years because there was so much debt in Floor, and it's all bore fruit. Like, so when that debt was only cleared probably 6 or 7 years ago at this stage. So
I used to meet a fellow one time, and he said to the time of things were going back to the time of Nama. I see you'll be in Nama soon, he used to say to me. Which is me cracked,
but that's why at that stage then everything that we were raising was going back to clear that debt. And when we finally got it cleared, when you looked at the main pitch in Lissycasey, now Park Mintra after PJs, you say, and if you looked at Fruer, they were both there and playable. The surface wasn't great, none of them were lit, and the surrounds of them weren't great. And the Eamon came back in as chairman following good work by Justin Griffin and by James Emir, and Larry Culligan, then a local legend outsider, nothing to describe him otherwise, like, but real cares for the club. He'd be John's brother, Dara and Shane's uncle, really cares for the club, and he kind of he'd be up walking laps of the pitch, and he got back involved as part of the field committee, and stirred a couple of local lads together. And the other thing not to forget, we converted the squash court into a gym with great work with John O'Malley was helping there, giving us the kind of a long-term lease on it. Derek Lynch from Limemark Construction, and a heap of lads got involved. It's a class gym, state-of-the-art gym now, and it was all done with manual labour locally. So there was kind of a dawn, a moment, and Danny Lynch was another leaning like, we need to improve facilities, and Danny Lynch said it. And it was funny then, we said we looked into raffling the car. There was talks of doing one of these houses, but like, I think for a club of our stature to take on a house, it
big gamble,
could have been car. So we settled on a car, and Liam Cleary here and Ennis was unbelievably good to us, gave us the car whenever we wanted, ensured that we could drive it. We brought it up and down the country. We were up in Mondello, we were up in Dublin, we were down in Mill Street and the agricultural show.
It was a great weekend down there now.
And we just really sold. And what helped that time as well is, you remember, Clare were going well in the All-Ireland Championship, so doing these monthly draws for this car. offering tickets for the All-Ireland or the Munster finals. Everything fell into place. We made big money. And when you were out there fundraising, we were just fundraising for facilities because we hadn't decided what we were doing then. But the best thing to do to get the grant in at the time, and we needed lights, so we went for lights. That got done. We still have a little bit of a kitty there, and we'll be hopefully within 6 months or so from now we have more plans for Fleur, and we'll be hitting the community hard again to drive in behind everybody. We've delivered lights. We've delivered really good playing pitches. The pitches are immaculate. The stand is done. You'll see it yourself now. The press box is upgraded, PA system, beautiful pitches to play on. So we have bigger plans, and we're hoping the community now has faith in the club to row in behind and develop for some more, and put the hands in the pockets again when we need them. But yeah, the super draw was top class. It exceeded all expectations. It brought in plenty money, and again we do the annual winter draw, and again that was Eamon's brainchild. As he said himself, Finucane again coming for money, like unbelievable. To go out into the winters every year and face door to door, knocking on doors to get money, and that can never be forgotten. But now Eamon has a wider team helping. Like a lot of that time, he did an awful lot of that on his own with the previous executives. But there's a lot more people now that have realised that you can't just expect the chairman and a secretary and a treasurer to go out and do everything. They have enough to do. But there's enough of people living in the parish that are gaining benefit from the facilities and the club. That you can't be critical. There's no point of being critical or giving out about how a team played. Like you have to get involved in the club, and if you have an opinion, say it at a club meeting or something like that. So the parish, the community, as Eamon said, we're linking in unbelievably well with Fergus Rovers, and their player numbers are bigger than ours, and they have full access to all the pitches. We work well with Fergus AC and the local schools, and we're all working together. Like the penny dropped a few years ago. When we work together, we can achieve bigger results and do bigger things. So it's been a brilliant couple of years, and the momentum has started, and we hope to keep it going.
Fantastic stuff. So what you're saying to finish up, Les, is there's no fear of NAMA anyway from here on forward.
But I would be just to finish with Paddy there. I would be proud to say now that we are debt free. And we have our 2 facilities, and there's no debt in the club. I remember before, the debt was used to kill us, as Paddy said there. We couldn't do nothing. All the money was going into paying the loans, So, but that's we're debt free now, which is great, and we can move on to upwards and onwards,
Brilliant stuff. Well, lads, we wish you continued success and the best to look ahead for the 26th season. And thanks for coming in to us.
Thanks, Eric.
This feature, More Than a Club, is funded by Commission na Man with the television licence fee.
And plenty more to come from clubs across the county over the coming weeks on our More Than a Club series. That's where you have to leave you for this evening. The West Wind is next. Have a great Monday night.